Please welcome Chief Accounting Officer, S&P Global, Christopher Craig.
Hello, and welcome to our discussion on our Oracle Fusion implementation. I am Chris Craig, and I am the Chief Accounting Officer of S&P Global. And I had the auspicious designation of being the executive sponsor of our General Ledger ERP implementation program, which we referred to as Project Tuscany. During this session, I'm going to try to pack 18 months of excitement, highs, lows, emotional wins, emotional failures into the next 20 minutes to try to capture the experience that I had through our Oracle Fusion implementation. I'm going to pull you into and help you feel the fear, doubt, at times intimidation I felt at the onset of the project that you should probably be feeling right now if you're about to undertake a similar migration. And in this discussion, I'm going to demonstrate how safe, agile, and an absolutely terrific team led to success, and consequently, the continued success of my career at S&P Global. So to set the stage, no pun intended, our story begins back in 2019 when I was a relatively newly minted Chief Accounting Officer. After being with S&P for almost 10 years, following almost a decade of rapid change within the company. Since 2010, we've been operating our general ledger in Oracle EBS. Oracle EBS at the time was to build the company structure. S&P was known as the McGraw-Hill Companies. We were a diversified conglomerate. We had multiple charts of accounts, a range of alternative hierarchies to accommodate separate views of the business, multiple integrations with separate billing platforms customized to each of our business's distinct needs. Then in 2011, a tectonic shift occurred within the company. And with maybe a little bit of shareholder encouragement, but management determined that we were going to become focused on providing financial intelligence to the capital markets. It's a huge transformational change. We undertook a series of changes with one bold step. We sold the iconic McGraw-Hill the McGraw-Hill Education Division, who represented 1/3 of the company's business at the time. Following that sale, we sold McGraw-Hill Education, Aviation Week, and J.D. Power and Associates. At the same point in time, we went through about 15 acquisitions. First, the acquisition of the iconic Dow Jones Indices, SNL Financial, Kensho, Steel Bivers Briefing, Pyra, and far too many names for me to really bring up right now, but just rounding out our whole entire financial portfolio. We also accelerated the globalization of the company's operating model and moving to a hybrid outsourcing offshoring policy strategy for all of our internal functions. We evolved our real estate strategy and our technology infrastructure strategy to contemplate a more asset-light and flexible operating model. Reflecting on this shift, the company changed names 3 times while I worked here. We started as McGraw-Hill Companies, then we became McGraw-Hill Financial, and then finally settling on S&P Global. So in 2019, after 10 years of changes, it was clear to me and the finance technology team that the company had moved past the operating structure that was in place in 2010 that Oracle EBS was built to accommodate. We knew that we were busting out of our chart of accounts, and after a range of internal and external reporting shifts, consistent reporting from ERP was becoming increasingly challenging and untenable. I recall an off-site planning meeting back in 2019, where I sat down with my CTO and my CFO and explained to them that we're going to have to re-implement EBS, putting in a new chart of accounts that would effectively be a real implementation, or we could go back. Sorry, I think I skipped something here. Or we could go back and try to go through and start our cloud migration strategy. In addition, we're up against the clock, both technologically and financially. Oracle EBS is moving off premium support in 2022. If we invested further in EBS, we would be investing in obsolete technology, paying a premium for ongoing support, and taking a greater portion of the technology debt in-house out of Oracle's hands. So those are our choices. We're either going an ongoing campaign to keep an aging infrastructure on-premise viable, or migrating to a cloud-based environment and take the risk of reinventing our general ledger workflow. I wish I'd say the choice was clear. I am confident there was a low appetite for a multi-million-dollar 18 to 20-month project. The CTO warned me of the pitfalls of a general implementation. So I went and spoke to implementation teams throughout my network and internally, the team that was involved with our billing migration back in 2017. Interesting. Give me 1 second. All my slides are messed up. So, one second, guys, I'm sorry. We skipped all the way to the team, guys. Go back. So the CTA warned me of pitfalls against the implementation. So suffice to say that nobody had a good implementation story. There were tales of cost overruns, delays going from big bang to a staged approach, failed implementations, and frankly, failed implementation teams. Success is far from assured, and a risk of a career-damaging failure in these projects is high. All that said, a little over after a year of being a CIO, I viewed the implementation as an opportunity to redefine the accounting and finance organization that I wanted to lead. I took stock of the team that I was going to be relying on throughout the project. Before being CIO, I was assistant controller. Before that, I was in charge of technical accounting and M&A finance. And over the years, I believed and became convinced through our acquisitions, we built a strong, high-performing team. The finance technology team wanted to do this project in the worst way. They felt moving into the cloud was like winning the Super Bowl. We sat down with the team, took stock, and everyone was enthusiastic and everyone was fired up. I cannot tell you enough. Make sure you have the right team as you embark on this project. And we had the right team, I felt, to go for the next 2 years. So we launched at that point. Our first effort focused on choosing the platform we're going to migrate to. So while we were already operating in the Oracle environment, we wanted to consider all options. One thing I will tell you about my CFO is he always tells me, Chris, I want options. So we looked at SAP, we looked at Workday, and we looked, of course, at Oracle. We even partnered with Gartner, who, after doing multiple levels of decks and evaluations and grids, basically concluded that anything could work, but Oracle Fusion was best for us. So in full transparency, the reason we went to Oracle Fusion was actually beyond the technology. It was the team. I needed someone who was going to invest in our relationship. I needed somebody who tied their success or equated their success with mine. And honestly, the team came through. They weren't selling a package, they were selling a partnership. Greg Godak, Jeff Cooper, Rod Carlson, and even Tony Castle, and too many names for me to actually name, behaved as if their success was tied to mine. We signed that contract in 2020, and then the gun went off. So I look across the multitude of decisions we've made, and there's probably 3 that were critical to the project's success. So first was the internal partnership with finance, technology, and accounting that I mentioned earlier. But there was one critical point. This was an accounting-led project. It was internally accounting-led, accounting-owned project enabled by finance technology, not vice versa. We needed the users to actually own the solution, and we needed finance technology to understand what we wanted. And that partnership that we built over the years was absolutely critical to the success of the program. Second, we established and formally communicated clear roles, responsibilities of each of the partners involved in the implementation, specifically KPMG, TCS, and Oracle. And third, we established a governance structure, which I'm going to talk a lot about, a meeting cadence and the workflow style that surfaced issues quickly, brought forward critical facts, and that gave these teams the facts to immediately swarm on any challenge we had. So a little bit more about the relationships. So first, I wanted an implementation partner that understood that this project was what defined the next 12 years of my career and make or break their reputation within S&P. I was vested in this project. I was putting my career on the line. I was putting my team's reputation on the line. I needed them to be as vested as I was in this program. For that reason, we structured our engagement as a fixed fee arrangement. Developing the SOW took almost 3 months, and I had to develop it 4 times with 4 different providers. It was an incredibly iterative process. Ultimately, KPMG proved the best fit by demonstrating culturally their values were aligned to one of the project. I've given this a lot of thought of why they're the best fit, and I could distill it down to probably one really clear example, in my mind at least. KPMG, throughout the RFP process, came and said, hey, Chris, I've got some great ideas. What do you think? Some of the competitors came and told me, Chris, you can relax. We know what we're doing. Now, I will tell you, I wasn't relaxed, and I wasn't going to trust basically the next 12 years of my career to somebody blindly. I needed someone who was going to collaborate, and that was a defining difference in the RFP process. They weren't driving a solution down my throat. They're actually collaboratively building a solution with me. But they were decisive during the RFP process. They pushed back respectfully when we were setting scopes. They compromised when we were able to see the path my team wanted to take. But most importantly, And critically, most importantly, they were willing to set the execution risk in the confines of a fixed fee arrangement. And that was the partnership that I needed. They also understood the long-term relationship we had with TCS. So over the last 10 years, we customized EBS for our specific needs. We have a 4-day close. You don't achieve a 4-day close without automation, without modifying, making it work for you. So TCS was part of our architecture, part of our culture, really going through and helping us drive and augment our staff and solutions to the end. And KPMG respected the role we wanted to play. TCS provided additional hands and knowledge for the unique problems we were facing throughout the project, and really the collaboration amongst the team was truly impressive. So, but to be clear, the RFP, as you can imagine, was a contentious process. KPMG had its formula for following an ERP implementation, which generally was not structured as a fixed fee arrangement, and they're also new to using Safe Agile, which our company adopted probably 2 or 3 years ago. While I'd worked with the team before, most notably internal control testing, outside of my relationship with the relationship partner, Ahmad Babawi, who's somewhere in this audience, I didn't know the team. They were new. They had to learn the end-to-end operation as they went along. But somehow we ended up with an SOW. And I will tell you, as we executed it, we were all apprehensive. Thomas, the engagement partner from KPMG, and I just signed what potentially I viewed as a potential career-ending engagement. If I didn't launch this thing on time and I didn't come through, I was pretty much going to be marginalized. And I wanted Thomas to feel the same way. And I'm telling you, he was taking that risk of that fixed fee arrangement, but he dove right in with me. On top of that, this is at the onset of COVID. I had never actually met Thomas. The only time I spoke to him was through Zoom calls. So we took the plunge, and against the odds, it proved the right choice for us. But that said, while we painstakingly developed the SOW and provided the key functionalities and capabilities that were critical to our ERP reporting environment, the SOW was really just a laundry list of the requirements, capabilities, and performance outcomes that we needed to see at the other side of the project. I received the foreboding warning from my CTO, who explained a project is littered with both a battery of known unknowns and unknown unknowns lurking behind every corner and every shadow. I got the sense he was concerned I was out of my depth. Implementation providers in the business of selling software. Implementation providers in the business of actually implementing software. Oracle's in the business of selling software. I'm in the business of running an ERP, so I probably was a bit out of my depth. Cloud technology is also new to our technology team. We were on-prem for the last 10 years. So, and EBS was just essential to our achievement of our 4-day close. Second, we're out of order again. So we knew collaboration was going to be critically important. We had different teams from different projects engaged in Tuscany. We needed to keep them aligned and throughout the project. Safe Agile provided us with that structure, conducive collaboration. Started with PI planning, task execution, and culminating ultimately in PI demos. Safe also provided for close monitoring, story-level metrics that we could monitor success through ADO. We could provide and pivot support as needed as the project progressed. As a sponsor, I needed to have a mechanism for updates on a continuous basis. I determined which work streams were succeeding, which ones were failing, which needed assistance, and starting to learn those lessons as we went along. The critical part of Agile is the daily stand-ups, the weekly all-hand operating meetings focusing on short-term goals. Establishing a culture of bringing problems fast was critical to our success. The Agile form of fail fast, swarm, recover, it occurred every day on the project, and we were involved in so many calls and we pushed through solutions. So our plan was to go live with a Big Bang approach in February 2022. We were actually able to accelerate that to January 1st, 2022, coinciding with the commencement of our fiscal year. We were able to complete the implementation of ERP and EPM for 36 countries, 65 general ledgers, 65 operating units, and 180 legal entities. The Oracle solution now provides continuous automatic software updates. We've eliminated the need to apply patches through every time they're released by Oracle. We've also eliminated the need to invest in our infrastructure and our data center team. The implementation also allowed us to consolidate applications, simplifying the architecture. We got rid of TM1, which was like an emotional lifeblood of the company in terms of information coming to all of the financial users. We got rid of Blackline for ARCs. We got rid of Maestro for job scheduling in favor of Oracle's standard scheduling feature. We got rid of our financial data warehouse on AWS and moved to Oracle's autonomous data warehouse. We got rid of Toad for reporting. We got rid of Informatica in favor of Oracle Integration Cloud, I think it's called. We also implemented something called RMCS. Probably the most challenging part of the project was RMCS, or Revenue Management Cloud Services. We had to handle complex scenarios with subscription termination, invoice cancellation, cancellation rebillings. It is an unbelievably complex architecture, and it took the full weight of the teams from Oracle, from TCS, and KPMG to come up with the solutions that we ended up really building a fantastic integration to our billing systems. We also implemented project accounting, moving into projects, which is new to us. There was a little more innovation moving beyond that, just, hey, we just need a standard ERP functionality. So now we've eliminated the need for offline spreadsheets for complex long-term projects. We also rolled out a new set of a chart, creating a unified structure across the business. Now we can have reporting in natural class P&Ls in minutes, whereas before it would take like probably a week to get consistent natural class reporting from an end-to-end basis across the company's 4 divisions. But beyond the migration, the technological achievements, I think what we really did is we established the accounting and finance technology team's ability to execute complex enterprise projects across geographies, across different business, using that safe, agile methodology. And last, by no means least, we have proved that our partnership with Oracle, TCS, and KPMG is just tremendous. All three, we have collaborative, trusting relationships. We can deal with ambiguity. We can mutually accept accountability risk that comes with all the change. So life after Go Live has moved really fast. Some of you may know we completed S&P Global completed a $44 billion acquisition on March 1st, 2022, only 2 months after we had implemented Oracle Fusion. So IHS is a company about 1/3 our size, 2/3 our size, $4.5 billion in revenue with 17,000 employees. They also had a general ledger that was in 5 different environments, including SAP. On day 1 of the acquisition, on March 1, 2022, we created a workflow to map the entire ledger structure sitting in SAP and the multitude of other systems directly into Oracle. We didn't have to eliminate outside and spreadsheets. We actually consolidated within FCCS, within Oracle. It was a tremendous accomplishment, testament to another great collaboration with TCS, KPMG in real time as we were going through into a go live. It was really staggering. On November 1st, a little more from a week from now, we'll move 90% of IHS transactions out of the Oracle environment into the Fusion environment. We were only able to move that fast because by rolling the entire Project Tuscany team onto a new project we call Project Union, which is the unification of the SAP and Oracle operating environments. Impressively, the finance technology and accounting team are the first team to move any major platform into one unified environment following the acquisition, only about 6 months. We've started planning for the next layer of innovation, where we're forming teams to pursue a more accurate and seamless close process, deploying Alteryx and Tableau solutions and reporting workflows using Safe Agile once again. But we're getting back to, I'm kind of getting off where is the most important part. The most important part of what I view Tuscany, and my takeaway, is that controllers, finance technology together are one of the most effective change agents within the company. It's really the confidence that was created through being able to negotiate change. We now embrace it. The team is excited to do new things. We're excited to see what else we can get out of Oracle. We're excited to see how we can go introduce the Tableau workflows, how we can automate faster, how we can get our close to be even faster than the 4-day close. How do we go through and deploy technology? How do we create a culture to really concentrate on driving change rapidly and getting more accurate financial reporting as we go forward? But that said, my team needs a breather, I need a breather, and I'm going to actually wrap up at this point and invite Preeti and Thomas, the partners from KPMG that got us to the finish line. So Thomas, Preeti, please come out.
Good job, Chris.
Preeti.
Yeah.
That was long.
You did great.
So tell me, at the onset of the project, tell me about what your feeling was when we said, all right, let's start this engagement.
I was nervous, not gonna lie. But I think the most important thing for us was trying to make sure that we could get people off mute on a Teams call, right? Who all can relate to that? The second part was also making sure everybody felt like their voice was heard and getting their opinion, getting their inputs, because there was a lot of good conversation, a lot of good discussion that led to some very important decisions throughout the course of this project. So really just getting everyone involved and included was important. I think the other part was I was very conscious about the fact that since we were delivering this entirely virtually, timing-wise, this is early pandemic, want to make sure we got some structure to the program. And then last but not the least, I think the governance structure that, Chris, you came up with was fantastic. As we went along the journey, wanted to make sure every single person, whether they were part of a Scrum team or a lead or a product owner, everybody knew what their role was on the project. Everybody knew what it is that they were trying to aim for and achieve and contribute. That really gave a pride of ownership. So really thinking about all of those things was where I was at, because transitioning into a virtual delivery model was really hard.
Absolutely. You guys did great, though. Thomas, as engagement lead, what was top of mind for you back there in, I guess, was May of 2020?
Yeah, I'm thinking back to those days, too, early 2020. We all remember those days early on. One thing for sure, the metaphor I like to use is similar to my team story, the Brady Bunch framework, right? Where you see the 3x3 and all those faces on your screen. You're working through the 10 by 12 inch two-dimensional surface. That was strange for us. That was new. We've all been on conference calls prior to that. Video conferencing was coming into play. We were using that a little bit, but this forced it right from the start. I could have never imagined working on the initial arrangement through a screen like that, right? Without actually meeting the client, shaking hands, getting to know them. Developing that chemistry was a big challenge for us. So, I mean, it was a challenge because of the virtual nature of it, but I think we were able to achieve that really quickly, I think, because of the situation we were in. Secondly, just to build this passionate team that's passionate for the work. I'm passionate for transformation and finance. I've been doing it my whole career. And getting the right team together with that same shared sense of purpose, I think, was also important. And then lastly, as I recall, some of what I would call the headwinds that we were facing back then. Most importantly, learning new skills. Safe Agile was a new way. I was a waterfall guy. I was one of the probably early ones that said, how is it going to work? How's Safe Agile going to work for ERP, right? There's so many dependencies. So that was something that we had to contend with right off the bat. And also, I think when we first met, Chris, you'd mentioned a challenging project that was executed a couple years before. It was around CPQ, and that was a tough one for us. I felt like that ghost of that prior project was following us around, and it felt like every time we had a status meeting, it's like, let's compare back to what it felt like at this point of the project when that one was going on. That was a constant reference point for us. I think that was positive because it kept us honest with ourselves. Chris, the program's name is Project Tuscany.
Right.
Now, I've been on many programs, and we've developed acronym-type names that stood for something. I think I can count many examples of IRIS and all these FIRE and all these different ones that stand for something. But it's pretty passionate exercise when you gather the team together to pick the name, right? Tell us a little bit about the origin of Tuscany and maybe some of the other names that didn't make the cut.
Sure. So, great question. I wanted the project to not be called Project Tuscany. I wanted it to be Project Pacioli. So I don't know how many accounting people there are in the audience, probably a fair amount. So most of you, or some of you, actually the accountants, probably know that Luca Pacioli is the father of accounting, and he was born in Tuscany. So when I went to the finance technology team, I said, okay, we're going to call this Project Pacioli. They didn't like it. So I explained to them why, and then they did a little research and came back to me and said, you know, Chris, I think maybe you should call this Project Tuscany. And so it was actually chosen, I think, by the finance technology team, which, you know, it's part of, I think, I had to compromise with them. So it's a much better name, and I keep telling my CFO, since we came in, you know, mostly on budget, that we should be able to pay for a trip to Project Tuscany for the entire 200 people engagement team. He hasn't signed off yet, though. So, let's see, who am I turning this to? Preeti. Maybe tell me a little bit about your thought process behind the Big Bang approach.
Good question. Before we go there, let us know what we can do to make sure that we get that trip to Tuscany. Yeah, we need to have that. But I think when I think back to the Big Bang approach, I think it really started with the RFP process itself. Chris, your team did a great job of creating and writing that RFP, which had a lot of detail and a lot of information, which for us coming in was incredibly valuable. Understanding your current landscape on EBS and the fact that you wanted to operate as a global team, but as one design. That was very crucial. So as we were going through the SOW conversations, you brought your team to the room. It wasn't a procurement exercise. And that really gave us a lot of confidence saying, hey, these guys know their tool. They know what they want. They have a very clear vision. Well, even though Big Bang sounds risky, it's something that we know we can do because we have a proven methodology that we bring to the table. Our powered enterprise method is something we know we have deployed in the past, and it works well for Big Bang or a phased approach, but it was really the confidence we got during that early negotiation process of the team actually knew what they wanted, they had a clear vision, a clear idea, clear requirements, honestly, to a decent extent. So we said, okay, yeah, let's pull the plug, let's go Big Bang, why not? And hey, we were successful. We delivered, a month early, which was fabulous. So everybody deserves that trip to Tuscany, is basically what we're all saying.
I can't agree more.
I guess the other part about the Big Bang, though, I would like to say, is knowing that we were going to do this through Safe Agile was important, right? That was our delivery methodology as we applied it. So with that in mind, I think, Thomas, can you talk a little bit more about your experience with Safe Agile? Are you a convert now?
I've been a waterfall guy, but I could say I'm a recovering waterfall guy now. I am an agile guy now. I'm happy to say that. The one thing I will say going into it, though, Chris and his team and that entire S&P organization, they had adopted Safe Agile prior to us getting there. The question often comes up on my other clients when I see that statement in the RFP that says this program will be executed using Safe Agile. The follow-up question I always ask at the bidders conference always is, do you have Safe Agile today? One thing I wouldn't suggest, I would never recommend, is implementing Safe Agile at the same time as a major transformation program. There's a lot to learn there, and I think what happened here at S&P is it was already embedded. The Scrum Masters were set up, the Agilists were there. We had some great Agilists that we learned from there, and also I will say when we got the RFP and we saw that, my first call was to our KPMG Agile team. We had Devin there with us that helped us through it, and he really enlightened us on what the power of Agile would be and how it would work. Of course, we were critical at first. The number one thing I always said to him, and he'll know the D word, right? Dependencies. How's this going to work when things are so dependent, right? Agile, you add on to an MVP over time, right? But as we all know with ERP, everything's got to fit together at the end of the day. So dependency was always a major concern of ours. But again, we worked through that. The secret to that is, number one, granularity of the features and stories. That's number one principle that we found. And secondly, sequencing. Sequencing is key there. So we've developed our Safe Agile methodology for Oracle right now, and we've got that out of the box, the actual sequencing that we need to go through to make sure all those dependency points are properly set. Preeti, as in your role, I want to hear your perspective on Safe Agile. We had many conversations at the opening, but again, you had to actually adapt it slightly, right, to fit an ERP program like this. So why don't you walk us through a little bit of that experience?
Oh, that was a challenge, but it was actually a fun challenge, I think. I think the key over there was making sure that we were focusing heavily on our planning phase. For the Agile folks out there, planning is crucial. We drank the Kool-Aid, we believe in it, and now we know we can endorse it even more. Getting through the clear targets, having showcases at the end of each program increment, super useful. I think in terms of how we adapted Agile to the dependencies that are inherent in a program like this, I think we did a good job of smartly applying when to go Scrum versus when to go Kanban. There are some parts of the solution that are much more suited to a Kanban type model with the iterative approach. So we were able to really focus in on that. I think in terms of also when we think about what else could we do to reduce the burden of the dependencies that are inherent in an ERP tool itself, I think the best thing we could have had was, Chris, getting really, really passionate product owners from your team. They were the ones who were there, they understood the requirements, they understood the solution. They were also end users. They weren't just a product owner for the sake of a product owner. So they really, really understood the process, and that gave us the confidence in making sure that we can rely on the prioritization process as it was going through, and we could also adapt and change. As we went along the journey, if there was something that wasn't moving along the right way and there was a dependency, we could very quickly pivot and adapt using the methodology. So all in all, I think coming out of this program and from a SAFe perspective, we did have to tailor it to our program in terms of the Oracle applications and so on, but I think it's the right way to do it for a product like this. That's kind of how I feel.
So KPMG had its clear methodology and approach. How did you tailor your methodology to S&P Global specifically?
So the methodology we're talking about now is our powered approach. And the best thing about that is really having our vision phase up front. And for that, we were making sure that we got the right people in the room, in the virtual room rather, get their opinions, get their decisions, and align on the granularity that we wanted to go through. Going through our validate phase again after that was super helpful for us to lay out the detail, the dependencies across the different teams. Our construct onwards approach, so construct, deploy, evolve, really self-explanatory on how we actually implement the tools. That is what we adapted very, very well to the SAFe Agile approach as well. So I think it was a combination of what we brought to the table, what you guys already had inherent and native into the organization, to come up with something that was the right cultural fit, I think, for this particular program. And I think I see some familiar faces in the room, so we cannot thank you enough for going along in this journey with us and being adaptive to this approach as well. So I think when we think about programs like this, it's hard to embark on a journey without having some core principles, having some guiding principles on that. So Thomas, can you elaborate a little bit more on the kind of guiding principles we use throughout Tuscany and now Union as well?
Sure, yeah. The first thing is communications and culture, I think, really fitting in. That's established so early in the process, and I think that's really important for us. When we were meeting with Chris and his team, again, the Brady Bunch up there, which we referred to, Chris, sorry, you guys are the Brady Bunch during the whole course. That was, but because that was what we saw, right? We were integrating, and you could tell by the voices, the expressions through the screens, you were developing that chemistry, if you will, right on through it. So I think that was really important early on, and we had to select the right team that had the right passion for this work, as I mentioned earlier, and able to work through the screens like that. So I think that was very important. The next thing, I'll cap onto something that Chris said earlier, having a good, solid understanding in writing through the SAL. I think that was important too. There was flexibility built in there. There were cases where we were surging in a certain area, and maybe S&P didn't have that skill available at the right given time. We had provisions there where we would step in. We had their back, and vice versa too. If we were short on something, well, we had someone help us as well. So I think having that horse trading, if you will, built into the contract with flexibility really does help. And again, it's all back to that initial chemistry point that we talked about earlier. And then lastly, the relationship, right? We had the benefit of having 8 years running of a relationship, which now is, I guess, 10, so it's 10. Awesome relationship with S&P, and I think that really helped us as well. Again, in good times and in maybe some challenging times, we're able to work through all that and really keep each other, watch each other's back, and promises made are promises kept. Chris, back to you. we've talked about this many times, 3 things to really keep in mind as a sponsor, right? You mentioned structure the program properly so you get good communications and telemetry throughout the journey. Secondly, you said as a sponsor you need to own it, which makes perfect sense. You can't just be a flyby every 3 months, check on it, you got to own it every day. Your third one was interesting though, right? Trust who you own it with. And you mentioned your partners, right, us included. You're also your own team as well. You had to develop that team and build it up. How did you build that team? Briefly, how did you build it, and how did you keep it all together during the course of the program?
I think Preeti touched on it when she was talking earlier. The key point with the team is you wanted people to be able to make the bed and then sleep in it. I mean, our project owners were the people who owned that cycle. They knew what they wanted, they knew what the performance requirements are, they knew my expectations, they knew the expectations and demands of the broader team, and they owned every one of the work streams. So establishing the right leads to own the project and having that right relationship between that accounting and that technology lead was critical. And that relationship is probably the first thing of like what is a key success factor in getting us over the finish line. The second is the structure. The structure, and to an extent, the structure and the culture end up kind of marrying together, is you have to have an environment that encourages people to stand up and tell you what is going wrong, when it's going wrong, without hesitation, without penalization, and welcome people into the conversation. That, by far, is one of the prevailing changes on a project that we really impressed was necessary. When I look back at some of the projects that failed, people didn't stand up. They didn't feel comfortable saying, hey, I'm concerned about this project. I don't have enough resources, or I don't know if the performance requirements are going to meet the specs. I needed to know that the second they knew that because they're the owners. So really just trusting the team to come up, own it, and creating that structure lets people come forward, which is what Safe Agile really promotes, that kind of let's see everything as it's happening in real time. You know, that fail fast, recover was just critical throughout the project. And finally, it's kind of saying the same thing, but you got to trust who you own it with. You got to trust the partners who are coming to the table. You had to trust Oracle. You had to trust a lot of people. I mean, you can't possibly know everything. There's just too much to know, but you really had to be able to trust people's advice, think about it, digest it, and then be decisive when you have it. That's probably the one other point I would say that me as project sponsor and the team, we had decision-making capability. You execute as soon as you can make a decision. There wasn't really a committee process that I had to appeal to. Once we had the people centrally with central authority, strategic vision, and the tactical understanding, we can make decisions fast. So it's really pulling all those things together and encouraging that environment all the time. In terms of Preeti, you really helped us manage a large-scale program. Can you talk a little bit about the challenge we faced, especially with COVID, and how you overcame those sort of large-scale challenges?
I'll keep it brief. I think if I think about our main challenges, I can categorize them into 4 buckets. Solution complexity, I think bringing the right partners, bringing the different professionals across the globe, frankly, to the table to help us solve for it was important. And we had the benefit of really leveraging the virtual environment in the best possible way by truly going global, having teams from India, from Pakistan, from the UK, from Canada, from the US, from Mexico, all over. So we were actually really able to get everybody together to help swarm on the solution complexity. Of course, with the pandemic, I think dealing with the challenges inherent to it, right? We had team members that were either dealing with COVID or their family members, so we had to be cognizant, we had to be sensitive, and we also had to support them. So again, to Thomas, what you said earlier, right? If we really worked well with our other partners on this program to make sure that the program was making progress, and we were also supporting our teams through some challenging waves of the pandemic. I think everyone over here has heard about the Great Resignation. Well, we weren't immune to that throughout the course of this program. So working through the attrition was a challenge, but we, I think, did a good job of making sure we had enough backfills. We had a backup plan for the backup plan to make sure that we had enough capacity to do our work. I think Agile really gave us the visibility into where are we lacking and where were we forward, so we could really balance out and manage to the attrition. And then last but not the least, I think, Chris, I mean, we've we've had a great partnership throughout this journey and before the journey as well. So it was very easy for us to work with a project sponsor like you and say, hey, listen, this is cards on the table. This is what's happening. Let's work together to solve it. So yeah, a lot of challenges, but I think we overcame them together as a team.
No, for sure, no doubt.
Awesome. Chris, last question. This is going to be an easy one, I think, for you. But we met 2.5 years ago. All right. You think about your relationship back then with KPMG 2.5 years ago, and then executing these last 2 projects. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about what's changed since then, and what some of those factors have been since we first met again 2.5 years ago.
You know, I think when I look at my relationship with KPMG and what has changed most significantly with previous engagements versus engagements is KPMG augmented our staff whenever we had projects. When we needed people, it was an augmentation. It was really, hey, I've got this project, I need to get it done. You know, I've got these internal control testing, I need to get this done. And you deployed, you know, resources to get things done, and they were good resources. And then maybe that was the start of the relationship where you could see that KPMG got people who cared. But I think what changed most significantly in this project is it became really a true partnership. You became embedded in the workflows, you embedded in the team culture. You started understanding our personality, we started understanding yours, you understand our weaknesses, our strengths, we understood your weaknesses and strengths, and we really built a more push and pull culture of continuous improvement, and that was probably the most significant change, I'd say, with my relationship. And I think we're just about out of time, so I think I've been trying to sit here thinking, what do I want you to walk out of this room with? And I think when I look at why we were successful, you're creating a community when you undertake a project like this. There's over 200 people and multitude of vendors that are be coming and going on the project, and you need to create a community of people who believe, people who want to be there, people who see how this is propelling their career forward. I look back, we had births, we had deaths, we had marriages, we had graduations, we had retirements, we had everything, all walks of life, and everything is impacted. It's critical people, it's people on the periphery, it's people who are around there. You have to create a culture of inclusion, create a culture of people who can really drive solutions together and understand those interdependencies and make it important to everyone to succeed. So that's probably, the first, and probably I could go 2 more if I really had to, but it's kind of that same iteration. It's just owning it, owning the project, getting a community that owns it, people who want to drive it to its conclusion, people who associate the success of the program with their personal success. Because in reality, it's true. That's how you aligned. We have established a high-performing team that can credibly take on enterprise-wide projects. And we did that through creating that community, through creating that inclusion, through creating a way to make everyone feel like they're part of something really big. And that's what this really represents as an opportunity for you kind of going forward. And that's the kind of leadership thing that gets me excited about coming to work, gets me excited about having teams that come there and say, I can succeed in a project like this, and I want to be part of a project like this. I had one person in the entire 2 years come and say, hey, Chris, there's something really exciting going on. I want to do something. Only one person out of 200. So they went and did something else, which is great. More power to them. But everyone, I think, really got motivated and excited to be part of this project. And that's what you have to create, is that continuous improvement, excitement to really drive forward with success. So with that, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for your time. I know everyone's really busy. I know you probably have about 12 different places you need to be right now, and spending this hour with us is really special, and I really appreciate it. So everyone have a great conference, and maybe I'll see you on the floor somewhere.